We kick things off with our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Alex, hello.
Great to be here. Thanks so much, Duke.
Boy, there are so many reasons to be skeptical, if not downright suspicious, if downright angry at the country of China. It's amazing to me how comfortable we are and how easily we do business with a place like that, with all the knee taking and all the griping about American history. My God, to be in bed with a country like that. And now the latest thing. Apparently, the American people are on to these Confucius Institutes in American colleges, nothing more than funnels and conduits for information leaving America, going to China. Now, how are the Chinese dealing with the fact that Americans are on to what the Confucius Institutes are all about?
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible story, Duke. So they kind of got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. These Confucius Institutes have been exposed by government, by journalists, as basically little outposts of the most murderous dictatorship that's ever existed in human history. And these are outposts on college campuses across America. These are outposts in educational institutions that are, as you pointed out, sucking information out of the United States and sending it back to China. They are engaged in espionage, and also they are engaged in spreading communist Chinese propaganda. In fact, these are ideological institutes that, under the guise of teaching Chinese culture and Chinese history, are actually promoting communist Chinese propaganda, glorifying communism, glorifying the revolution, and so on. And so they got caught. And now a new report by the National Association of Scholars reveals that basically they're just rebranding. Almost 2/3 of the places where these Confucius Institutes were shut down, they now have new programs that are basically the same. They just have a new title, and of course they're accomplishing the same purpose. So it's amazing that this could be happening in America. You can just imagine America Institutes in China spreading, freedom and Christian propaganda. I mean, it's self-evidently ludicrous, and yet for some reason American colleges and universities don't seem to have any problem with a mass murdering dictatorship spreading poisonous propaganda.
Yeah, when you mentioned their hand in the cookie jar, that would be the fortune cookie jar, because apparently one of the main reasons these wonderfully Marxist and wonderfully woke universities are partnering this way with the Chinese, not because they're trying to spread love for Chinese culture, but because they're getting boatloads of money. Talk about the angle. How are the Chinese getting these schools on college campuses? How much money is taking place? What's the scoop on that?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So far, the Communist Chinese have spent, that we know of, over $150 million on these programs. So obviously, the regime puts a great importance on brainwashing America's next generation of leaders. They're doing this in very sophisticated fashion. And again, they've been caught multiple times. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was Secretary of State at the time, said that these are outposts for spreading Communist Chinese propaganda. And yet all these universities, I think only 5 of the universities that shut down the Confucius Institutes expressed concerns about the fact that a mass murdering dictatorship was using them to spread its propaganda. Most of them just shut them down because, hey, we're just going to replace them with different programs. So just like you pointed out, there's a lot of money involved here. And, for being Marxist, these college and university administrators and leaders are very, very willing to sell out their people, sell out their nation in exchange for big bucks.
I'm sure you remember about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, when we were hearing all about the Saudi Arabian Wahhabist form of Islam doing the very same thing, dumping millions and millions of dollars cash into American schools and universities to, let's just say, reclaim and to whitewash the history of Islam in American schools. And we see it with the Chinese now as well. So the question I guess I have to ask you at the end here is this openly treasonous in your mind, or is this just money-grubbing college professors who preach Marxism and want to line their pockets, or something in the middle?
Well, I think it depends on how you define treason. If you define treason in the traditional way, basically betraying your own country to its enemies during a time of conflict, this is perilously close to that line. That's not to say that every college bureaucrat who rubber stamped an application to put one of these things up there is waging war against his or her own country, or now they have new pronouns. I guess his or her is not inclusive enough. But I regard the entire educational machine as practically committing treason. Again, I'm not accusing teachers of committing treason, but I am saying that back in the 1980s, in 1983, Ronald Reagan put together the National Commission on Excellence in Education, and what they concluded was that if a hostile foreign power had imposed this educational disaster on America, we may have regarded it as an act of war. And when you look at the domestic actors who put that in place, people like John Dewey, people who were openly fond of the Soviet Union, it looks to me very much like they have betrayed their country to the interests of hostile foreign powers. And it's a very, very serious issue. It cannot be allowed to continue. And parents and taxpayers, it's going to fall on you to stop this, because your politicians and your university administrators are not going to do it.
Pretty clear that the Biden administration is not interested and actually supports these moves. Was the same true about Trump, or did the Trump administration try to at least push back a little?
The Trump administration did try very hard to rein all of this in, and it really tried to recalibrate the relationship with China on a much broader scale. But the moment the Biden administration came in, they basically reversed everything important that the Trump administration had done, including on these fronts.